My name is Dr. Avantika Berwa. I teach sociology in Miranda House College, University of Delhi. My areas of specialization include sociology of religion, sociology of kinship, and anthropological aspects of the notion of feminine beauty and gender issues. Medical practices and sociology. Medical beliefs and practices reflect the cultural values of a society. We can't claim to have a disease that doesn't exist in our culture. Culture shapes the notions of health and illness. What are even more compelling, though, are dramatic cultural differences in medical treatment among societies that share many values, beliefs, norms, and structural elements. In United States, medical treatment tends to derive from an aggressive can-do spirit. Doctors in United States are much more likely than European doctors to prescribe drugs and resort to surgery. US women are more likely than European counterparts to undergo radical mastectomies, deliver their babies by cesarean sections, and undergo routine hysterectomies while still in their 40s. People in the United States see their bodies as machines that require annual checkups or routine maintenance. Diseases are enemies that need to be conquered. For example, people try to beat cancer. In contrast, British medicine is much more subdued. British physicians don't recommend routine examinations, seldom prescribe drugs, and order about half as many X-rays studies as US doctors do. British patients are also much less likely to have surgery. These attitudes also influence the perception of the patients. People who are quiet and withdrawn, which US doctors may consider symptoms of clinical depression, tend to be seen by British psychiatrists as perfectly normal. Alternative medicines are popular, but do any of them really work? If people want to burn fat, detoxify liver, shrink prostate, avoid colds, stimulate brains, boost energy, reduce stress, enhance immunity, prevent cancer, extend lives, enliven sex, or eliminate pain, all they have to do is walk into a vitamin store and look around. The shelves will be lined up with ginkgo or rose and orange oils touted as aids for memory, guarana and cordyceps for energy, chicory roots for constipation, lemon balm oil, ashwagandha, eleuthero, Siberian ginseng and holy basil for stress, sage and black puhush for menstrual pain, coconut oil and curry powder for Alzheimer's, saw palmetto for prostate health, sandalwood bark to prevent aging, garlic for a high cholesterol, peppermint oil for allergies, artichoke extract and green papaya for digestion, echinacea for gold, prondothin sulfate and glucosamine for joint pain, milk thistle for hepatitis, St. John's wort for depression, and tongatali for sexual potency. The question, however, is which product work and how do we know they work? Fortunately, we can figure it out. When James Lind climbed aboard the HMS Salisbury intent on testing whether citrus was a cure for scurvy in 1740, he moved medicine from faith-based system to an evidence-based system. No longer do we believe in treatments, we can test them to see whether they work. Although the size and cost of clinical studies have increased dramatically since the days of Lind, which is 1740s, the claims made about alternative remedies are testable, eminently testable. In that sense, there is no such thing as alternative medicine. If clinical trials show that the therapy works, it is a good medicine. And if a therapy doesn't work, then it's not an alternative. For example, Hippocrates used the leaves of willow plant to treat headaches and muscle pains. By early 1800, scientists had isolated the active ingredient aspirin. In 1600, a Spanish physician found that bark of cinchona tree treated malaria. Later, cinchona bark was shown to contain quinine, a medicine now proven to kill parasite that causes malaria. In late 1700s, William Withering used the foxglove plant to treat people with heart failure. Later, foxglove was found to contain digitalis, a drug that increases heart contractility. Most recently, artemisia, an herb used by Chinese healers for more than 1,000 years, was found to contain another anti-malarial drug, which was later called artemisinin. Herbal remedies are not really alternatives, says Stephen Novella, a Yale neurologist. They have been a part of scientific medicine for decades, if not centuries. Herbs are drugs, they can be studied as drugs. Another favorite home remedy is garlic to lower cholesterol. Because high cholesterol is associated with heart diseases, because heart disease is leading cause of death, because lipid lowering agents lower cholesterol, and because many people are choosing garlic instead of lipid lowering agents, researchers studied it. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body, yet some dietary supplements might benefit otherwise healthy people. Calcium and vitamin D in postmenopausal women to prevent bone thinning, and folic acid during pregnancy prevents birth defects. Less than 1% of total body calcium is necessary for performing the functions of muscle function, nerve transmission, and hormone secretion. The remaining 99% is stored in bones where it supports bone structure and function. The problem with calcium occurs when people get older. In children and teenager, bone formation exceeds bone breakdown. In early and middle adulthood, these two processes occur at equal rates. Past the age of 50, however, especially in postmenopausal women, bone destruction exceeds bone formation, leaving them vulnerable to fractures. Every year, more than 1.5 million fractures occur in the United States because of bone thinning. The best way to avoid this problem is to eat dairy products such as milk, yogurt, cheese, and calcium fortified fruit juices, cereals, and other foods. Because most women get enough calcium in their diet, and because supplementary calcium has not been shown to reduce fractures in otherwise healthy postmenopausal women, the UN Preventive Services Task Force does not recommend supplemental calcium. But calcium is linked to vitamin D. People who take inadequate amounts of calcium might still have problems with bone strength if they do not get enough vitamin D, which helps the body absorb calcium. To get an adequate amount of vitamin D, people need only expose their face, arm, hands, or back to the sunlight without sunblock for 10 to 15 minutes a day, at least twice a week. This will provide 600 international units of vitamin D recommended by Institute of Medicines. Some people, however, don't do this. For this reason, many foods are supplemented with vitamin D, such as milk, bread, pastries, oil spreads, breakfast cereals, and some brands of orange juices, yogurt, margarines, and soy beverages. Because most people get enough vitamin D in their food or from exposure to sunlight, the US Preventive Services Task Force does not recommend supplement vitamin D. Finally, folic acid is a B complex vitamin necessary for production of red blood cells. Without folic acid, people develop anemia. Researchers have shown that folic acid deficiency can cause something far worse, severe birth defects. Pregnant women deficient in folic acid have delivered babies with malformations of spine, skull, and brain. To avoid folic acid deficiency, people need about 400 micrograms a day. Food rich in folic acid includes vegetables such as spinach, broccoli, lettuce, turnip, green okra, and asparagus. Foods such as banana, melons, and lemons, and beans, yeast, mushrooms, beef, liver, kidney, orange juice, tomato juice. Although there are plenty of sources of this nutrient, many pregnant women weren't getting enough folic acid in their diets. So in 1998, the FDA required manufacturers to add folic acid to breads, breakfast cereals, flours, cornmeals, pasta, white rice, bakery items, cookies, crackers, and some grains. As a result, it is now almost impossible to become folic acid deficient. Nonetheless, women of childbearing years are advised to take 400 micrograms of folic acid every day, obtained either from food or supplements or both. Now let us come to the most difficult challenge which most of us are facing today, which is the coronavirus disease. Coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19 is a new infectious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, that belongs to the coronavirus family. The first case was reported in December 2019 and the disease has become a pandemic. Impaired immune regulation is one of the factors that play a role in this pathogenesis and results in poor outcomes of COVID-19 patients. There are some herbal agents extracted from plants including Echinacea, cinchona, Curcuma longa, and Curcuma xanthorrhiza, which are considered for the treatment of COVID-19. Currently, there are no specific treatment for COVID-19. Furthermore, people in the community and researchers are trying to find out the best way to cure or prevent the disease, including using herbal medicines. Since the immune status of patients play an important essential role in COVID-19 infection, and herbal medicine, which has an immunomodulatory effect, could have potential as a preventive measure and even therapeutic agent for patients with COVID-19 infections. A recent trend in community is the consumption of herbal medicines containing certain active compounds which have antimicrobial or antiviral, anti-inflammatory and anti-stimulatory activities such as echinacea, quinine and curcumin. These herbal compounds are assumed to have capacity to modulate the immune response and therefore they are believed to have beneficial effects on preventing or treating COVID. Echinacea purpurea. Echinacea purpurea is one of the most popular herbal medicines in Europe and North America because it shows promising effects against viral infections. Its common name is purple cornflower. The preparation of E. purpurea can be in the form of extracts, tinctures, teas and sprays. Many Native Americans use this kind of herbs for respiratory infections. It contains several bioactive compounds like chicoic acid, caffeic acid, alkemines and polysaccharides. Curcumin or turmeric. It is an herbal plant called Rhizomatous and it also known as Curcuma longa. It is a plant that has received much interest in medical and scientific fields. Turmeric also belongs to the ginger family and Curcuma genus. Turmeric is mostly used as an important spice and natural food coloring and as a food flavor. For many years, turmeric has been widely known as medicine to treat various diseases and conditions. The treatment with turmeric has been investigated in preclinical and clinical studies. Curcuma longa has been used traditionally as in ancient countries as a medicine or supplement. This medicine serves as antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer agent and is used in treatment for many other diseases such as diabetes mellitus, cardiovascular diseases, obesity, neurodegenerative diseases, inflammatory bowel diseases, allergy, asthma and psoriasis. Cinchona. Cinchona tree from Andean mountain forest have valuable benefits as particular component of tree contains bioactive compounds that heal fever. This beneficial effect was first discovered by Jesuit missionaries and gradually expanded throughout the world. The bark of the trees produces quinine alkaloids which are also effective treatment for malaria for more than several centuries. Quinine has a mode of action that is similar to that of chloroquine, a synthetic anti-malaria agent to treat malaria, thus it's known as chloroquine analog. Nowadays, quinine sulfate has become one of the most wanted drugs in the society for COVID-19 treatment. Xanthorizol. Java turmeric or Curcuma xanthorrhiza is an herbal plant that is widely used in South Asian countries. This plant belongs to ginger family. Java turmeric originates from Indonesia and has been spreading and growing wild in Thailand, Philippines, Sri Lanka and Malaysia. It also has been used as food additive to enhance flavor of the food. In addition, this plant has been utilized in medicinal world. Its benefits have been scientifically proven. This plant is used to treat some diseases and supplements. Xanthorrhiza is widely used as medication and supplement for specific diseases. This plant has same effects as antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-pyroglycemic, antihypertensive, antiplatelet, nephroprotective, anti-cancer and supplemental agent for systematic lupus erythematosus. Finally, a suggestion for the patient is that it is still not recommended to use supplementation containing one of these compounds to prevent COVID-19 or to heal the disease without specific advice or under the direct supervision of a clinician. A suggestion for a clinician is that administration of these herbal medicines must be given carefully to patients even if healthy. Thank you.